What's going on? Welcome to the Matt Bernier Show here on DRFTV, live.drf.com. Let's see, what else is it on? Live.drf.com, the Daily Racing Forum's Twitter handle, that would be at DRF Inside Post, as well as Daily Racing Forum's Facebook page, and livestream.com. That was the other one, having a little bit of a brain fart here on the final Friday leading into the holiday weekend. If you listen to this thing podcast version, as most of you do, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. Today, Friday, December the 22nd. You know, I have to be honest with you. This is going to be about as bare bones a show as you're ever going to see. A podcast, if you're watching it, you're not going to see a heck of a lot. If you're listening to it, you're going to hear about a couple of races, but really this is going to be as bare as it gets, simply because I thought about it. Next week we're going to replay the top 10 performances of 2017, in my opinion anyway. Maybe there would be something that happens on opening day at Santa Anita that just jumps out of nowhere, but unfortunately it is what it is. It's the show that we showed last Friday, so that's going to be coming up next week. And with this week, with only one graded stakes race ahead of us, and we'll touch on that momentarily, I said, what the heck am I going to talk about here? We've kind of beaten everything into the ground. You're going to see some other good stuff coming up here on Out of the Gate. You already listened to the DRF Players podcast. So you know what? This is going to be down and dirty, about 10 minutes maybe. We'll dive into 3 races. If you want to get all the full-blown nuts and bolts, you can go on to video.drf.com, or you can go to the Daily Racing Forum's YouTube channel and check out all of these stakes previews. Again, only one graded for this weekend. That's going to be down at Gulfstream and Mr. Prospector. And if we're being honest, that's a graded stakes race in name only. And then there's 2 races up here at Aqueduct that we're going to touch on. It sounds like it's going to be wet weather here in the New York area, so you're going to have to factor that into your handicapping a little bit. And as far as opening day at Santa Anita is concerned, I still have a couple last-minute things I need to button up before we dive into doing stakes previews, so I'm not going to really give you anything here on this show about that. You're going to have to go over to video.drf.com or the DRF YouTube channel, and you can take a look at the stakes previews that Ilman and I will have up later on this afternoon if you're listening live. This is on Friday. Getting you ready for opening day at Santa Anita, the traditional opening day the day after Christmas. Everybody gets excited about it. It's one of the big days in Southern California. And they've got 4 graded races on tap, and it looks like they're all competitive fields. So that'll be interesting to see. All those stakes previews will be in those places that I just mentioned. Let's dive into the 3 races that we'll go over. First and foremost, let's start off here at Aqueduct. Race number 7 tomorrow afternoon. It's the Gravesend. It's a $100,000 purse, 6 furlongs on the main track. Let's take a look at this field. And this is my morning line. I'm sorry, my value line on the far side. It's not a morning line. What I think would be fair value on each one of these runners. We'll go right in post position order. Keep in mind, there's a possibility for some wet weather in New York. So you're going to have to factor that into your handicapping. The number 1 is Truth or Else for Kenny McPeak, 19-1. Do Share, the number 2 for Linda Rice, 7-2. Life in Shambles for Steve Asmussen, 12-1. Chief Lion for David Jacobson, 1 of 2 in here for Jacobson, 49-1. Gold for the King, 8-1. Great Stuff, the other Jacobson, 3-1. 3-5 India, 3-1. And Green Grotto, 24-1. The interesting thing about this race, not only is weather possibly a factor in this spot, you have to look at it from a pace standpoint. Timeform US Pace Projector thinks that it's going to favor horses on or near the early lead. I think it's going to be a scenario where you have only a couple of horses that want to be that forwardly placed. Green Grotto, Chief Lion. Chief Lion, I maintain, wants no part of 3/4 of a mile, which unfortunately for him, there really aren't many other distances shorter than that you're going to run here in the States. Unless you go to Charlestown, you run 4.5 furlongs, or you find a couple of races that are at 5 or 5.5. I think he's going to go, and I think he's basically, I don't want to call him a full-blown rabbit, but I think he is in there to ensure that a horse like Green Grotto has to work early. I think they're going to stretch this field out. So I don't think he's going to necessarily favor horses on or near the early lead. I think those are the 2 horses that are going to go. But I think it's going to help set up some horses coming from off the pace. I think Do Share has a giant chance in here for Linda. Horse is proven on a wet track, 4 for 5 in the money, 2 for 5 as far as wins are concerned. The most recent run probably had to work a little bit harder than some people would like to see, but I thought all things considered it was a gutsy effort, and I thought it was a positive. He can certainly take a step forward here. I picked him second. The horse I'm going with is Great Stuff. Now, I picked Great Stuff in the fall highway in his most recent start. That was on Thanksgiving Day. And it was just an unfortunate scenario where he just didn't have a lot of running room. A lot of running room down at the end. He was coming down on the inside, and 3-5 India kind of flowed into his path a little bit. Rajiv Mirage had to take up on Great Stuff. Now you get Joel Rosario. Again, with the presence of Chief Lion, there's a part of me that thinks they're going to set an honest enough pace. Maybe 6 furlongs isn't ideal for Great Stuff. I think he's probably more of a 7/8 horse, but Great Stuff, I'll play him at 3-1 or better. Maybe I can get cute, use 3-5 India. I don't trust him at all, but I think he's going to run a representative race, and I'll also include Do Share in this spot. So the Gravesend, for me, 6-2, 7-5. I like great stuff in this spot. Let's go on to the route race that's going to be a stakes race tomorrow at Aqueduct. Race number 8 is the Queens County, $125,000 the purse. Here is the field. In post position order, the number 1, Discreet Lover, one of my new favorites. I made him 4-1 on my value line. The 2, Do You Know Something, 19-1. Watershed, 7-1. Senior Investment for Kenny McPeak, 6-1. Backside of the Moon, 24-1. Securitiz, 19-1. Zanati, 49-1. And the last 2 runners in here, Alex the Terror at 4-1 and Kuralov for Chad Brown at 9-2. The interesting thing about this race is to find out who's going to go to the top, because you've seen other horses in the past go, but now you hear, particularly like Kuralov on the outside, Chad Brown, he was on the lead in his North American debut, and Chad said, we kind of want him to come from a little bit farther off of it. We don't want him out there winging it and dinging it on the front. Alex the Terror, stretching out from a mile, going to a mile and an eighth here in this spot. He showed decent speed in that most recent run, but it was a rated pace. It's not like they were going guns blazing. If you believe the Timeform U.S. color codings, they were all colored blue, those internal fractions. Makes me wonder, distance-wise, is he really going to be able to just outfoot everyone and make the front if they're going to be going that slow, or if he wants to have more of a rated pace? So ultimately, you've got to do a little bit of deciphering and see, is there a scenario where Do You Know Something, off the claim for Diodoro, is he sent from the gate? Now, I said in the stakes preview, I believe if they send him to the front, I think he's going to need a 1.5 mile kind of pace in order to get the 1.1 mile distance. I don't think this is really his bread and butter. I think he's better going a little bit shorter. We'll find out. There's a scenario, I suppose, breaking from the post number 2, that they send him, they get off to the front, and that's that. I just don't love him in this spot at this distance. At 1.1 mile, I think Discreet Lover, again, I've always been a bit of a fan of his. He's been placed in impossible positions for the longest time. And now the connections, it seems like these past 3 starts or 4 starts, they've started to think more reasonably, more realistically. This is a nice horse. It's just he had no chance against Gunrunner. He's not going to, he was lucky to even come close to hitting the board in those 2 races up at Saratoga. You see some of the other spots he's been in, the Pimlico Special, the State Dinner, when unfortunately for him, he ran into Seymour Dini, who ran off the screen that day. I don't know, I look at Discreet Lover and say, you know what, when he's finally placed in positions that he can win, he wins races. That most recent run in the Sotara I thought was visually impressive, although I thought it was beneficial to be forwardly placed, which he was, and he was out there on a rated pace as well. But the run 2 starts back, and the Richard Small down at Laurel, I thought he ran a winning race, and for somehow, some way, a Fleet Willie completely botched the start, had to steady into the first turn, and still won, like, basically a 1-9 shot. I thought that was a winning effort from Discreet Lover. He came back, he won the Swatara. I think he's got a big chance in here. I made him 4-1. For me, in order, 1-8-9-4 in the $125,000 Queens County at Aqueduct. Let's go down to South Florida. This is the only graded stakes race on the docket tomorrow afternoon. It's the Grade 3 Mr. Prospector. Let's take a look at this field at Gulfstream Park. Race number 10. It's not a big field. You got a field of 10 signed on. It's a decent enough group. There's one horse that towers over this field if he can still run, and that's the thing that you need to decide at home as a handicapper. What do you think of XY Jet? But before we get to him, post position order. The number 1 is First Growth. I made him 6-1. The number 2, Sonic Mule for Todd Pletcher, 4-1. The number 3, Your Dreams or Mine, 16-1. Number 4, Sweet on the Ladies, 32-1. K-Wave. I think Ben Colbreth's a great trainer. I have no idea why this horse is here. 99-1. I'd probably make him 200-1 if I could. The number 6, XY Jet, 7-2. And by the way, I just said that about K-Wave. Put a ring around if he's going to win the race. The 7, Fire Mission, 6-1. 8, Quixote, 6-1. 9, Fast Friar, 19-1, and the number 10, Quinientos, 99-1. This is a race, again, you need to decide what you think of XY Jet. Can XY Jet still run? His best race doesn't win this race. It wins by the length of the stretch. He's run 100-plus buyers a number of times in his career. I believe it's 5. He's a graded stakes winner multiple times over. The problem is, when he went to Dubai, he came back and there was an issue. He was gone for about 6 months, and he ran in the Vosburg, and he didn't run very well. And then he came back from the Vosburg and ran at Laurel, and he didn't run very well in the De Francis Dash. I'm saying all this. This was in 2016. Now he's been gone for 13 months. He could be controlling speed in this spot. If he can still run, he's going to win the race. Pretty cut and dry. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't want to find out what's going to be. It might be odds on. He might be 4-5. I think he should be 7-2 just based on the concern that I don't know that he can still run. If he can, he's going to win, but I think this is the kind of opportunity that you don't get very often. just take a swing against a really short price. If he wins, so be it. And I'm not suggesting you go out there and to drop your entire bankroll betting against this horse, but I think this is an instance where you could be getting some value on some other horses that maybe they're not sexy on paper, particularly the horse that I like, and I've never ever liked him. But a horse like Sonic Mule, it's got a terrible name. That's neither here nor there. Sonic Mule is a horse that he's never been the flashiest horse in the world, and the toughest thing for him, if he were in, let's say, 80% of the barns on the backside, he'd probably be one of the best horses. For him, he's in Todd Pletcher's barn. He is basically the C-string in this spot. His most recent run, though, in the City of Laurel Stakes, 3-year-old restricted race going 7/8 of a mile up at Laurel, I thought was really good. I thought it was a gutsy effort. He dug in. He hung on his left lead. I'm not going to hold that against him. I don't love to see it, but at the same time, if we're not dealing with superstars in here outside of XY Jet, why can't this horse turn back to 6 furlongs, which I think is going to be helpful for him? It's Pletcher, it's Velasquez, it's Gulfstream. They win everything, and he could work out an ideal trip. There's a scenario where if XY Jet can't step anymore, Sonic Mule sits right here, inherits this thing turning for home, and then the no passing sign comes up, and he goes on and gets the job done. I made him 4-1. I believe he's 8-1 on the morning line. I've never liked him, but I think if I'm going to take a shot against XY Jet, which I feel obligated to in a spot like this, I'm going to go with Sonic Mule in here, acknowledging that if the good XY Jet, if he can still run, he's going to win this race. I just don't want to find out at a short price that he can't run anymore. Give me Sonic Mule in the grade 3, Mr. Prospector. So this show, again, we're basically going to button this thing up. Only about 13 minutes, just a quick in and out. Let's go over a couple races and move on. You're going to have all sorts of good stuff coming up, though, over the next week and a half or so, simply because we've got opening day at Santa Anita on Tuesday. Those stakes previews from Dan Ellman and myself will be up here shortly if you're watching this live on Friday. If you're listening to the podcast, by the time you're listening to it, all those stakes previews are probably going to be uploaded to the site on video.drf.com as well as the Daily Racing Forms YouTube channel. If you're listening to this live, you've got live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forms Twitter handle. That would be at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forms Facebook page. If you listen to the podcast, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. Normally, on Mondays, we have the recap show where we'll go back and take a look at the graded stakes races and just any other sort of important races or big performances from the weekend prior. Because of the holiday, that show will not be happening next week. And I've already mentioned, next Friday you're going to get the year-end review kind of situation here, the top 10 performances, in my opinion, of 2017. So the weekend recap will not return until after New Year's. And in that one, it's probably going to be a supersized edition because we'll go through all of the Santa Anita races, 2 weekends worth of Santa Anita races, as well as all over the place, whether it's Gulfstream or it's Aqueduct or whatever else it may be, as well as some big-time performances. So the recap show will have a little bit of a hiatus, about a week going through with the holidays. This show will be back on Friday at noon Eastern. You'll be able to take a look at what I consider the top 10 performances of 2017. But before you get to do that, as we always do here on this Friday edition, we roll into the latest edition of Out of the Gate. Dan Ellman and I went over some of the best performances in 2017 on Out of the Gate this week. So we'll go into all that kind of stuff. Happy holidays, have some fun, be safe, don't do anything stupid. Go out there, hopefully you pick a couple winners. Enjoy opening day at Santa Anita. Enjoy this weekend of gambling, whatever it may be. If you're playing at Gulfstream, you're playing at Aqueduct, you're playing wherever it may be. And then, again, happy and healthy New Year. We'll talk to you again on the other side in 2018. Good luck. Without further ado, here is Out of the Gate.